My name is Ash, and I want to start off this conversation. I do want to get back into abortion a little bit, but I want to start off this conversation by saying I am a Christian. I go to church every Sunday. I believe in God. I've seen his work, and I don't want that to necessarily be a basis for the discussion. So we can both agree that a fetus has viability outside of the womb at 20 weeks. We've seen it happen. We have not seen a fetus be viable outside of the womb before 20 weeks, right? Okay, so getting into that, we can go back to someone who is brain dead or in a long-term vegetative state, right? They cannot live without the life mechanisms that are helping them breathe, like their ventilators, if they're on dialysis, if they're in kidney failure, stuff like that, right? So could you make the same argument that a fetus that is living inside of a mother's womb cannot live outside, relating it to the life-sustaining like stuff that is keeping a person alive if they're in a coma or something?
Right, not to rehash the prior argument, but you understand the moral difference. A 17-week-old allowed to continue to develop will become self and independent, where an individual in a vegetative state will almost assuredly not. They're two separate things. Secondly, it goes back to the question, define viability. There are babies right now that are 27 weeks in the NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care unit, that have all sorts of compartments all around them. Is it morally justified to pull the plug on a baby in NICU?
So most women, like going to abortion, most women are not getting late-term abortions if it is something that they want. People who are getting late-term abortions are people where the fetus is either like already dead, so getting like kind of a miscarriage.
So that's not an abortion, just so we're clear. The removal of a carcass is not an abortion, but yeah.
An instance where a woman is getting an abortion because if she has this baby, she will die.
Yeah, but why would they not be counseled to get a C-section?
If someone is gonna die from giving birth, whether that's
not C-section is not the traditional vaginal birth. It's way safer and quicker than an abortion.
It might be safer, but there are still instances.
It might be safer. You disagree? So then, shouldn't we counsel women to get the safer option? That
there is still a chance that they're going to die, though.
Well, there's a chance they could die if they get an abortion too. Abortion is actually the deadlier of all the options for a woman in a crisis post 20-week situation. But the abortionists make more money, and it's easier to just terminate the life. For example, if you have the uterine wall break at 28 weeks, serious problem. You have an option: go get an abortion or go get a C-section. Which one is actually quicker?
An abortion, but people...
No. C-section's way quicker.
But what I'm
you
saying
could go
is...
right now to Columbia General, and you could get a C-section in like 15 minutes. They're primed for... An abortion is actually like a 9-hour prep procedure. The point being is that you're talking about a very isolated set of cases. However, even with those isolated set of cases, we are led to believe that abortion will save the mother's life when there's an alternative cesarean section on the table that these moms are almost never told about.
So then the issue is educating women on their options. So here's my thing.
Which OBs should be doing, but they're not.
If there's a woman who, like you said, 27 weeks, uterine wall breaks, most likely that woman wants to have this baby. They have carried it to 27 weeks. They didn't get an early term abortion before the fetus was viable. They want to have this child. So if they aren't given this option, then what are they supposed to do? So could you see a world in which we give legislation into where OBGYNs, doctors, surgeons are forced to give...
Yes, and it gets voted down by Democrats in the pro-abortion lobby all the time. This is our advocacy, is that you are not stuck if your pregnancy goes wrong in the 20 weeks. In fact, a C-section is safer for you and safer for the baby, like 99.9% out of 100 times when that terrible situation happens. The problem is that the OBGYN industry will present abortion as a much more viable option when it just isn't, because also they don't even factor in the baby's life. It's like, okay, it's just a disposable component here, where our perspective, and I know you might disagree, we should seek to save both lives, both the mother and the child, where the OBGYN, and this is how they're medically trained, is first and foremost the doctor for the mother and then the baby second. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I can find middle ground here. I can agree with that. And because, again, I don't think that any woman who's carrying to 27, 28 weeks is wanting to have an abortion. So those options should be, like, educated, and people should be given options.
Fair enough. I agree.
Can we move to early term abortion a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, so is there any instance, whether rape, incest, anything like that, where you would agree with an early term abortion? Not a single instance. So, like, a 13-year-old who was raped has no financial stability, can't even get a job because you can't get a job until 14, 15, 16 in the U.S., who cannot support that baby. If it was her father, then she has no support from her parents. What is she supposed to do in that situation?
You could put the baby up for adoption. But outside of going into the extreme specifics of your case, which does happen, it goes down to the fundamental question. Is it a baby that she is helping develop in her womb, or is it something else? If it's a baby, then you must have universal human rights applied to that baby, definitionally.
Can you claim a fetus on your taxes? No, you can't. You can claim a 1-year-old. You can claim a 9-month-old.
Actually, that's a great idea. We should actually have child support starting 9 months earlier. So you won me over.
There we go.
But if your point is that our federal tax code reflects abortion laws, then you've made the point. But I guess my question for you, when does life begin?
I think that life begins at birth. And I know you're going to disagree with me on there. But I also believe that, like, once the fetus is viable, if the birth happens at 20 weeks, 21 weeks, then that is a child. But before that, when it does not have, like, all of its functionality to be able to live outside the womb, even in, like, the NICU, then it is not alive. It's not a child.
Babies in the NICU are not alive?
I said when they are able to live.
I know, but what's the moral difference, though? They have machines, they have assistants.
You cannot have a 15-week-old fetus and have it live outside of the womb. Bottom line, we don't have the technology to do that.
So at one point you were a fetus, right? Mm-hmm. Were you alive when you were a fetus?
No.
Really?
I don't believe that I was alive. I didn't have thought.
Okay, so I do want to go back to one component of your argument. You talked about that you are a Christian. So in the book of Luke, it says that John the Baptist leapt in the womb when it came near Jesus Christ. It's the word brephos for baby. Was John the Baptist and Jesus a baby or a fetus in the womb?
I think he was a fetus.
So Jesus was not alive in the womb?
I think that he had his, like, functionality, but he wouldn't have been able to live outside of the womb.
How do you leap if you're not alive?
Babies move all the time. It's instinct. It's not like... It's the same way... It's not like something that they're thinking about doing.
Right. So my 6-month-old has a lot of different instincts. When you get a newborn baby, it will wean for its mother's breast. It's not thinking, it's instinct. When you poke a baby in the stomach, it will react. So a baby cannot hunt or gather for itself until it's probably 4 years old. Therefore, it's dependent on the mother, dependent on the father. How is that any different than a baby in utero that needs nutrients from the mother?
Because in utero, right, the mother doesn't have a choice. Whatever they eat, going to the baby. Whatever they drink, going to the baby. All of that. And sure, they're able to give it up for adoption, and then they won't have to worry about it. And our adoption, the system currently, is a whole nother issue. But sure, they are able to give up this baby for adoption, and then they don't have to worry about it. But it's having the choice of if you want to nourish that child, go through all of the pain and struggle and everything that comes with being pregnant.
So outside of rape, would you say we should get rid of all abortions except of rape and incest?
I think I'm not pro-abortion. I am pro-choice. And ultimately, it's not up to me if she was pregnant and wanted to get an abortion. That shouldn't be my decision. And so I don't think it should be the government.
So therefore,
but I'm not pro-abortion. I don't think that voluntary late-term abortion should be allowed.
I got it. Well, so let me ask you a question. Since you're pro-choice, should a mom be able to choose to abort her baby if she finds out she's having a girl and she wants a boy?
So
you're pro-choice.
I don't think that voluntary late-term abortion should happen.
No, that's not the question.
So that's what I'm saying. If that's the woman's choice, then that's the woman's choice. And a lot of times that's going to be a discussion.
Wait, hold on.
The thing is, you're saying this, but people don't do that.
Oh, no, they do it all the time. It's actually illegal in America to do it. In fact, they do it so much they had to pass a law where people would get genetics tests around 12 to 14 weeks. They would find out they were having a girl, and the incident rate of abortion would spike. It is illegal in America to have sex-selective abortion. So your view of basically developing a child is no different than like customizing a Ford Explorer.
Missouri Governor Mike Parson is expected this week to sign a law banning most abortions after the 8th week of pregnancy. This is part of a new wave of laws that have sparked protests and are meant to force a Supreme Court showdown on abortion rights. President Trump has signaled he believes the Republican-led effort may have gone too far. Here is Ed O'Keefe.
I feel strongly about it, and all of that is working its way through court.
President Trump today addressed the issue of abortion on his way to a campaign event in Pennsylvania. Once a supporter of abortion rights,
I am pro-choice in every respect.
Mr. Trump tweeted over the weekend that he strongly supports restricting abortion with exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of a mother. That puts him at odds with conservatives pushing for measures like Alabama's new strict anti-abortion rights law. The state's Republican governor defended the bill today.
It underscores the sanctity of life that the people of Alabama value so highly.
But supporters waiting for the president at that campaign rally said they agree with him about Alabama's law.
I didn't agree with that. That was going just a little bit too far for me.
I agree with Trump. Incest, rape, and the life of the mom are the first three things.
8 states so far this year have passed laws limiting abortion rights. Alabama's goes the farthest, while 5 other states passed so-called heartbeat bills that ban abortions after 6 to 8 weeks of pregnancy. Nationally, most voters believe abortion should be available, and the issue has become a central focus of Democratic presidential campaigns.
Make no mistake about it. These laws are dangerous. They are regressive.
This is nothing short of an all-out assault on women's reproductive freedom.
Tomorrow, various abortion rights groups are planning what they call a National Day of Action. Rallies are scheduled to be held outside the U.S. Supreme Court and in cities stretching from California to Indiana and Florida. Major?
Ed O'Keefe, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Identify yourself, please.
I'm Brady. I'm coming on this bill on behalf of a child in the womb who this bill targets. I'm sorry. I've been crying ever since I even found out about this bill a couple of days ago. I mean, it's just... My mom was 21 weeks pregnant with me in a very abusive situation with my biological father, which caused me to have, they did all the tests, found out that not only was I a girl when they wanted a boy, but also that I would likely never live to see my teen years, never be able to walk, never be able to talk, because I have cerebral palsy, hydrocephalus, scoliosis, a lot of genetic problems. And instead of preparing my caregivers for what would happen with my conditions, the main thing medical professionals pushed in 1983 was to have an abortion. My biological mom was not strong enough to say no. But by the grace of God, the health care I received as a child in the womb who lived through that horrific experience, and I still have effects from it to this day. I don't have muscle tone in my neck, my arms, my right side, or nothing. But as y'all know, I'm here every day on everything, so that doesn't stop me from doing nothing. The health care I received was when they realized that my lifeless body still had life in it as a product of an abortion. I was transported to Children's Hospital in New Orleans. A baby in the womb, targeted for abortion, has been sitting in the back of this room, listening to the largest abortion provider in the world say that killing me in the womb is considered health care, as if my disabilities and my birth defects determine the value of my human life. I am a college-educated, very outspoken CASA advocate, very outspoken on domestic violence, very outspoken on sexual abuse. And also, as far as the rape thing goes, 5 years ago I found out that I am a product of rape. So I want to publicly thank Representative Edmonds for doing this bill. And most of y'all that I've already known and the ones that I don't. Now you know I'm so active on everything because I'm not even supposed to be sitting here right now. They told my parents and my aunt that raised me that put me in an institution. I was in honor classes. I started school 2 months before I made 2 in special ed. Kindergarten on, I was in honors classes. When I ended up having to leave school because of medical reasons, I had a 4.3 GPA. My brain, to this day, I'll be 33 in September. My brain to this day on a CAT scan or MRI looks like worse than a ball, Jack's ball, 3/4 deflated. The part that doesn't exist is the part that forms cognitive skills. The part that allows you to function on your own. But I feel like for such a time as this, even though I've been doing this advocacy stuff since 2008, these kind of bills happen because finding out everything I found out in the last few years, it just hits personal because watching all the Planned Parenthood videos, I'm sorry for bringing Planned Parenthood up, but I'm a product of the abortion industry, so it hits me pretty hard, more harder than it does a lot of y'all. Watching them videos, and even though they claim they were edited, I don't know how you can edit 2 technicians laughing about aborting a 22-week fetus, baby, which even if they call it a fetus, define fetus in Latin, it means little one. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Great job. Mr. Mills, identify yourself, please.
Gene Mills, President of the Louisiana Family Forum. Members, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. There's not much I can add to the compelling testimony that's been offered to you today, except to say the beautiful children that you've seen here today and the compelling testimony that Brandy has brought doesn't always end in a live child. I had a very close friend, in fact, my high school best friend, married my wife's high school best friend. He was my roommate in college. We met at LSU, and in the course of their pregnancy, they had the unfortunate incidents of being one of that statistic that Rick Edmonds talked about a moment ago, the 133,000 or so per year that receive one of those abnormality prenatal tests, and they are told the facts, and oftentimes the facts are not contextualized in form of relationship, in form of opportunities, in forms of what can be done to remediate some of the concerns. Instead, in the best medical interests, they're often told to pre-prepare a couple for what the medical profession believes is the best outcome. And oftentimes that is not a debatable. You have an authority figure speaking to a young couple, or worse, a single young lady, in the most difficult circumstance of their life, all alone, and I underscore that, all alone. And the very authority figures that can bring either a remedy or throw a lifeline are offering, communicating medical facts that may in fact be true or may in fact be accurate, but aren't necessarily the truth. In Ronnie and Annie's case, they decided at that time that was not the course of action for them to take, even though their child's brain was being formed outside of her skull and her body, and they were told with near certainty that child would not survive beyond a couple of hours after birth. I'm happy to report to you that they decided that this child and her dignity deserved not only the care of a loving mother and father, but the caution and the respect that's afforded to that life
as they held their baby as she died, and then provided a Christian burial. What we're talking about today is not taking away a woman's right to decide. What we're talking about today is teaching a medical profession the ethic of life that Louisiana represents and how we administer that. And unfortunately, too often time we get lost in the cold medical hard facts, and there are casualties when that occurs. I would respectfully encourage you today to favorably pass this amendment or this bill. Thank you.
Dr. Cudley.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative, for the opportunity to speak here. Actually, I wasn't initially planning to speak about this bill. I wasn't aware of it until moments ago, but I think I have something to offer, a unique perspective. In my 13-year career as a physician, I've taken care of thousands of women, pregnant women, including those who've had a diagnosis prenatally of Down syndrome, among other problems. These children don't always survive to live birth, but when they do, understandably, there are sometimes issues. When I started medical school, my first research project was on the psychological sequela of women having experienced an abortion. And that's what I want to speak about that I don't think is well appreciated. And one of the statistics that really was compelling and surprising that I did not expect to find is that of those women who are more likely to suffer from depression and then actually end up in other issues such as alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and even suicide, those women who had an abortion advised to them because of a genetic anomaly were the ones at greatest risk. And while every pregnant woman that comes to me, does come to me in a situation where I'm responsible for both of them, I'm just speaking here about the woman. That's should be sufficiently compelling, the argument against discrimination of the preborn child, but the woman herself suffers even more significantly when she is encouraged to have an abortion for this reason. And the data didn't point out that she was encouraged to it, but that's already established. The data just pointed out women who have an abortion for this reason. But I've had many patients that came to me that transferred care to me because their prior obstetrician was so heavily encouraging them to have an abortion that they found it increasingly difficult to go to further appointments. They could no longer take what they felt was an abuse in terms of pressure and treating their preborn child as if the child was already dead in a way to sort of break down their will to eventually accept that recommendation to undergo an abortion. So that's just all I have to offer on this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Randy, identify yourself, please.
I'm Brandy. I'm coming on behalf of this bill on a fairly different one than I took on the last one. But I will say at first, Carhart, that was mentioned in the court case on this bill, I had an encounter with him in 2008, between 2008 and 2009. When I was praying on the sidewalk of George Stiller's clinic in Wichita, Kansas, which he was also doing abortions at. One day, I was praying in front of the incinerator after they turned it on. He was going to McDonald's for lunch, saw me on my knees, rolled down his window, knowing my background, and told me that I was a sorry excuse for a human, and sped off. May 8th, 2003, after a very horrific situation, trying to prevent myself from having to go down that road because of the fact that I knew that's how I got here, I became not only not a sidewalk counselor, I guess you could say, that I had done since I was 8 years old in front of clinics. I became a patient. It was also a day that Tulane medical students were doing their clinical rotations. Back then, 13 years ago, they were open 6 days a week. The day I went was one of their busiest. So with that, a Tulane resident was given my case. The first time I tried to look at the monitor, they slapped my face. The girl who is now the office manager was the ultrasound tech back then. The next time I looked at the monitor, trying to look at it, never did get a chance. They put a sheet in between me and the monitor. The first bill I actually testified on was 2010 here, was the ultrasound bill. And one of the senators on that committee tried to have a debate with Senator Broom on the chamber floor, saying that if I would have looked at the monitor because of my situation, that I would have been traumatized. At that point, it had been 6 years, and I came back at him and told him that had I been allowed to see the monitor, my child might have been here. It was because I was 23 and a half weeks. They did a DNA, but they did like a partial birth because he sucked the brains out. I'm just gonna be blunt about it because that's what happens. Her nerves were still functioning. So he freaked out, didn't know what he was doing, turned her in utero and decapitated her. The last memory I have of my child was her head hitting the steel can. I'm sterilized, and I'm about to make my 1 year of breast cancer survival from it. I was diagnosed at the age of 31. My physician, who is pro-abortion, knowing I was pro-life, sat me down in her office one day when she had to deliver the news to me that that's what I had. We had a 2-hour conversation. She said there's no other reason that you have this condition but your experience. So when they try to say that breast cancer is not linked to abortion, go check my medical records, please. And I also want to thank Representative Johnson because after what happened to me, I know happens quite often, it needs to be stopped because the babies do feel pain. I mean, my child's nerves were still functioning. She was fully formed, fully developed, healthy and everything. I'm sure she felt when her head was separated from her body. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to make a call here. I got a very special guest coming on tonight. You're going to enjoy this. If you have small children, you may want to remove them from the room. This could become somewhat graphic. I sure hope my call goes through and I can get this young lady on the phone. Hello, Sister Brandy. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Great. Speak up as loud as you can, please. I got you live with our audience right now. Are you in Baton Rouge tonight?
Yes, sir.
And Brandy is, actually, when all this began to happen with the pandemic and the quarantines, I first met Brandy. She actually began to, because of her position, I began to tell you, I'm only going to call her Brandy, not to reveal all of her identification here, but she is down in our capital area, Baton Rouge, tonight. And when all this began to happen, Brandy was actually sending me a lot of updates about the coronavirus and the death rates. And she was faithful. Every day I was getting it on my media. She was updating me about the cases and the death rate and just staring us right in the face. I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about what your position is as being a liaison and what you do. You're obviously an activist. Just tell everybody what your status is right now the best you can.
Legislative liaison is pretty much like a lobbyist, advocating for different populations. Mine, because of everything I've been through, is practically for the most vulnerable that most forget about, not just with regular life, child abuse, foster care, veterans, domestic violence, sexual trauma, that kind of stuff.
Right. It's a great work that you're doing. So, Brandy, you have an amazing testimony. When I begin to hear Brandy's testimony, this is heart-wrenching, so you may have to get your Kleenex out. But you have a amazing testimony concerning your mother's attempt to abort you. And I want you just to tell us, first of all, the miracle that happened the day that your mother went into an abortion clinic, and just tell us what happened on that particular day.
Long story short, my mom's abortion was forced, which I will understand before this whole interview is over with. And I was carried to New Orleans, what used to be the largest abortion clinic in Louisiana, but shut down in 2016 because of violations. The day my mom was forced to walk in that facility, she was 21 weeks pregnant. Because of my gender and other situations and domestic violence, not being able to be, that's where she was brought to. But when the nurse, it gets to me, but when the nurse was getting ready to take the trash out, because after the abortion was complete, I was in a pain. My body was lifeless, so everybody thought it was a success. She picked up the pan, my arm shot up. So, pictures were taken, and I was transported to receive medical care.
Amazing, an intervention of God's, basically, and I hope you guys can hear her very well. But basically, after the abortion, laying in a pan, and they're ready to do whatever they do the next step, and they think it's been a success. She should have been dead at that point. What'd you say, Brandy? That was at 21 weeks?
Yeah.
At 21.
Most babies don't survive preemie without an abortion being involved at that stage.
So at 21 weeks, her mother has an abortion. Brandy is laying in a pan, and her hand goes up, which, amazing that we're sitting here talking to her right now. But this attempt at the abortion, Brandy, I want you to tell everybody, because first of all, then of course she said she was transported medical help. She survived it. How? Only an act of God, only a miracle from the hand of God could do such a thing. But this attempt left you with some brain injuries and other things, Brandy. Help people understand, what a miracle your testimony is, even just to be here talking to us tonight. I want you to tell people about some of the injuries or the disabilities you succumbed in the attempt of the abortion.
With my brain, my skull was smashed, and my skull was crushed and my brain was smashed in. The part of my brain that literally, as you've seen on the pictures I sent you, that was taken from one of my brain scans last year, the part that doesn't exist forms cognitive skills and, the stuff that allows you to communicate and function on your own. I have spastic CP. I don't have muscle tone in my neck, my arms, on my right side especially, because the left side of my brain is what was messed up, so that affects the right side of my body. I have epilepsy, hydrocephalus. I mean, my medical rap sheet is literally probably taller than I am, and I'm 5'5".
So, her cognitive skills, she was at a crushed skull, brain damage, all of these things. She just goes through the list. But, when you start dealing with cognitive skills, these are the things that people have to function on their own independently to be able to speak and take care of yourself. But in spite of that, if it's not enough a miracle that she doesn't die in that clinic, but with all of those injuries that she succumbed to, that now I want you to tell them this, Brandy, because in spite of whatever handicaps, you defied the laws of medicine, science, to graduate. Tell us again very quickly your scholastic and education accomplishments in spite of all those injuries and even brain traumas.
I have honors in my academics, and I went into healthcare till I went into politics in 2008.
Go ahead.
No, gave my abortion testimony at the state capitol, I had pro-life legislators looking at me that knew my medical rap sheet were like, what? How can you even be sitting here? Because when, after abortion wasn't a success, they literally tried to get my mom to institutionalize me, and when she wouldn't, they made her see a psychiatrist and everything else. She flat told them God gave her to me the way I was for a reason, and nothing was going to stop her from, getting me to be as independent as I could.
Right.
3 days before she passed away, I cooked spaghetti for her on the stove. They literally told her because of my pain cessation problems and everything that I would never be able to use a stove.
What a miracle. What a miracle. And we're so glad your mother got to see that. And we're going to get into talking to some healing here and praying for people, some of you that have been through this or however it's affected your life. The mercy of God, there's nothing God can't forgive. There's nothing that God wouldn't reach to. So, but I want to get into the part of this. I don't know if you've been with us for about an hour as I've been talking, Brandy, but good. Actually, the reason that you are being carried, or at least we know that God had an ultimate reason, or you wouldn't even be here alive right now. Yeah, this is touching. I'm seeing people here that are they're being blown away with wows and glory to God. This girl is this young lady is an amazing testimony. And like I said, not only she should have been dead in the pan, but if she did survive it, just the brain trauma and a crushed skull, she should be a vegetable at the best. But to be working as a legislative liaison, to be a lobbyist and an activist as she is, speaking up, and she has a loud voice down in our state capital, Baton Rouge, is why I really thought to bring her on tonight, because she's so credible, and I wanted all of you guys to hear this very heart-touching story. But the reason carrying you, there was a specific reason for your birth in general. I want you you don't have to elaborate more than you feel comfortable, but I would like for you to tell them why your birth was planned out to begin with.
Well, I'm going to try not to get graphic, but I was conceived in a satanic ritual. My contributor is a high priest Satanist. He has been deceased since 4 weeks before my mom passed in 2017, but I was conceived in a ritual and intention, whether in the womb or after birth, was to be sacrificed to Moloch. And they actually tried it several times after the abortion attempt failed.
So in case you didn't get that, what she just told you is that, and because people a lot of time don't, and Brandy, if you don't mind, are you 30 years old?
I'll be 37 in September.
37, so you've been around here a while. But what Brandy just told you was, now this was 37 years ago. She was actually conceived in a satanic ritual, and the reason for her, as she calls it, the contributor who contributed the seed for her conception, was so that Brandy, whether in the womb or out, would be used as a sacrifice to what I've been talking to you about tonight, unto Moloch, Baal, which we know ultimately is a principality that works underneath the heading of Satan himself. So her life as it was, and we know that God had the ultimate plan, but her life as it was organized, strategized by a cult of people who planned on taking her at birth, or however they were going to do it, a few days after, to do what I've been preaching to you about here for about an hour tonight, to sacrifice her. But Brandy, what you told me is that they were looking for you to be a male, and when they discovered that you were a female, they pretty much told your mother her services were no longer needed, and the child that she was carrying was not of use to them. Is that correct?
Yep. And I've also been called a sorry excuse of a human by a very well-known late-term abortionist who does partial birth abortions. So,
well, you're inspiring a lot of people.
The devil's worst nightmare.
You're the devil's worst nightmare. You're inspiring a lot of us tonight, because this is and here we are down in the Bible Belt. We're kind of Louisiana, the buckle on the Bible Belt, and we think that but I mean, going on 37 years ago. What do you think's happening now? So I'm going to get into some of this here in just a moment. When me and Brandy finish, I just wanted you to hear her voice tonight, and I'm going to tell you where you can go watch her video where she testified in Baton Rouge. And it was a very powerful testimony that she gave in a hearing down there as an activist and a lobbyist against abortion. But Brandy, to the best of your knowledge, what do these Satanists or these Luciferians, these Moloch worshipers, what do they stand to gain from sacrificing a person like you, a child, to the devil? What's the reasoning?
Status and power.
Right.
Like, with me personally, I know for a fact because my first brain surgery, Children's Hospital in New Orleans would not do it. It was too risky. No other hospital around would do it because of my computer status in the cult world.
Wow.
One of those orders got a hospital to do it and a doctor. I literally had my first brain operation done and paid for by the worst kind of demonic people imaginable.
And so what she's telling you there, these people have connect. You know, when people think about a Satanist or an occult, they think about somebody standing on a pentagram with some candles out in the backyard. That's not what we're dealing with here. What she's talking about, these are the elite of the elite. These are people who function and operate in the very highest systems of government. And she's talking about medical. When other hospitals wouldn't do her brain surgery, these people had connections to get things done that you typically couldn't get done and bought and paid for. Brandy, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to give you just a minute here just to, before we wrap up, just to share your heart, say whatever's on your mind tonight. You can do anything short of cussing, but I want you, God's really done a work in your life, and I pray for you. I appreciate you being so brave and being so bold, and I'm going to share that YouTube video where they can go watch you, and this just puts kind of a solidification on what I've been talking about for an hour or so. People don't believe this really goes on, but I'm going to give you just a minute. Just take about 60 seconds, a minute, and just share your heart, what's on your mind, what you want to say, how good God's been to you.
To make the situation real with the pandemic and the persecution of Christians in this issue,
yes,
we have a governor who professes to be Catholic and claims to be 100% pro-life. We have a pastor 10 miles from an abortion clinic in Baton Rouge sitting on house arrest for holding church services while the clinic in Baton Rouge has probably killed more babies since the virus epidemic started than people have died of the virus in East Baton Rouge Parish.
Wow.
The pictures I've sent you have happened 2 times a week since this outbreak started. They will only close the first 2 weeks.
Which is a very amazing thing, and I don't know if you posted those pictures, but Brandy had sent me some pictures when a lot of these things were started going on, and we know that churches are being closed down, told they can't have church. But I believe you give me the numbers because she's in Baton Rouge, and she actually led some lobby or some activist protests against the abortion clinic. But you said that in the clinic were about 50 people, and then you sent me pictures of them lined up outside around.
And there was no social distancing going on in Lancaster. You know, abortionists that travels here from New Orleans didn't even have protective gear on us because, you know, the governor said you got to have a mask on.
Right. And people...
She gets away with not having a mask, but Tony Spell gets 6 citations for holding church.
That's right. Regardless of...
Y'all don't call it persecution. I don't know what it is.
Right. I don't know what it is. Regardless how a person would feel about Tony Spell, what she's telling you is that abortion clinics are essential and they can be packed out to capacity. no social distancing, going all the way around the building. No police are showing up. Nobody's putting ankle bracelets on anybody. Nobody is telling. So you can continue. I want to say it like this. The devil can continue his church service worshiping Moloch, but you can't continue worshiping Jesus Christ. And it's the double standard that we're into right now. For our governor, that somehow God will wake him up before it's too late, because if we don't, Louisiana and many other states that are going through the same thing, they're going to be shook by the hand of God, because you can't do what we're doing and get away with it. Brandy, thank you so very much. I know that there's hundreds of people listening to you right now, and thousands that are listening to this through the week. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for everything you're doing down in Baton Rouge and standing up for those that don't have a voice. You're doing a great job, and I want everybody to put Brandy on your prayer list. Brandy, till next time, maybe I'll have you back. I appreciate you.
All right, thank you.
You have a good night.
You too. Love you.
Bye. I love you. Oh, my God, folks. If that doesn't get a hold to you, I don't know what could get a hold to you. Whew. My Lord, my Lord, my Lord. That shakes me up for a minute, folks. I'm gonna finish up. Now, you just heard it there, and after you heard it from Brandy, in case you weren't, I don't know how well the reception was that you could hear, but this young lady conceived in a satanic ritual, what she calls her seed contributor, her father. Her mother is carrying her to eventually, if she is born, to be offered up to Moloch, who I'm talking about. These people speak these terms. These people are not atheists. These people believe in a God. They just don't believe in the God. And then whenever it was found that she was going to be a female, they didn't want her anymore. Thank God the Lord wanted her. He had a plan for her the whole time. But
Good.
Good afternoon, committee. I'm Brandy, resident of Baton Rouge. Some of y'all know, some of y'all don't. I was kind of hesitant about speaking on this bill because I knew how it was going to go, but I just want to put a face on the youngest victims impacted. I was conceived in sexual violence. When domestic violence didn't end my life, my mom's abuser forced her into an abortion clinic. Like I told WAFB yesterday, I'm stubborn. If you want to know my mom's response when she realized that I wasn't dead. When the doctors tried to get my mom to institutionalize me because they told I'd be a vegetable, and I lived in my 10 years. First few years of my life, I laid on a blanket and gurgled. I couldn't say mom, couldn't move, couldn't nothing. She told them God gave her to me the way I was for a reason, and she was going to do everything she could to raise me to be as independent as I can be. 3 days before she passed away, after being told my entire life that I would never be able to use a stove or live independently because of my problems from pregnancy, I was able to brown ground meat on her stove. And I think that's when she realized that I would be okay. And also, I've been in the shoes of someone forced to have one from being raped. May 8th will be the 19-year anniversary of that. And most of y'all know May 8th this year is Mother's Day. So I can stand in the shoes of the youngest and people on the other side. While I don't judge people that have it for whatever reason, there's really, I didn't deserve what happened to me. My mom didn't deserve what happened to her. But that doesn't dictate my human value or anything else, because a lot of y'all are probably tired of seeing me up here on everything I'm up here on. But I'm alive for a reason, to be a voice for people literally from a child to an elderly person that can't be up here. Because someone with my medical record is supposed to be confined to a wheelchair, and I know who I am, and I'm supposed to be in an institution. And I don't take it for granted that I'm not. So please support this bill. Thank you.
You're
in
against
fact.
abortion even in a case.
Yes, I am.
Aren't
That's
you?
correct.
Wow, ladies,
Yes.
listen up. If you get you're going to have to hold their f***ing baby.
Okay, but let's ask you. Can I ask you a question? If I had an ultrasound of a baby conceived in or an ultrasound of a baby conceived in a loving relationship, which one is which?
It doesn't matter. That's
no,
about the
because
context.
human rights do not stop based on the method of conception. Human rights are applied to all.
Wow.
In fact, did you know?
So rapists have more rights than a woman.
Well, actually, do you know that there's
About
someone?
the control of
do
their
you know?
body? You're
do you
saying
know
rapists
that
have
there's
more
someone in
control
this
than
audience?
the woman being
Did you know
raped?
that there's someone in this audience that was conceived in? Can you tell me who it is?
It doesn't matter.
No, tell me who it is. Because
It doesn't matter. Why?
No,
what does that matter?
Because what matters is babies conceived in don't get less human rights just because they were conceived in a nasty, ugly, evil way.